This is CBC Vancouver News.
Remembering a fallen officer who died in the line of duty. Thousands paying their respects today, honoring a life taken too soon. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. Mounties, first responders and community members gathered in Langley today to remember Constable Rick OBrien, a man said to be full of life.
He was full of life and full of laughter. I feel honored to have known Rick, and I can honestly say there will never be another person quite like my friend.
OBrien was dedicated to his work as an officer and valued the time he spent in his community. He was killed last month while executing a drug-related search warrant. He was a beloved husband, friend, and the father of 6 children.
Rick loved to attend schools any chance that he got, and he cherished all the positive interactions that he had with youth.
He died at 51 years old, survived by his wife Nicole and his children Cindy, Taylor, Chelsea, Isaac, Braden, and Bryce. Our Liam Britton is live with me now after being at the ceremony all day today. Liam, I imagine a very somber and emotional service.
Yeah, that's right, Anita. If you've never seen one of these law enforcement funeral processions, they're quite a scene to mark what's truly a tragic loss. You know, I saw police from Langley, Vancouver, Abbotsford, New Westminster, Surrey, Delta, Saanich, even state troopers from the U.S., and I'm sure that's not an exhaustive list, plus firefighters, paramedics, Canadian Forces personnel, corrections officers. Mounties believe there were 3,000 marchers in support of O'Brien's family in Langley, so absolutely a spectacle, colorful and dramatic, but of course a dignified and reserved one. You could see the emotion on the expressions of these officers and others as they marched down the street. The whole procession moved into the Langley Event Centre for further tribute to O'Brien. We heard from family friend reading words from his widow. She spoke of the couple falling in love, raising their blended family of 6 kids, and about a vacation never taken. We also heard from his colleagues about the kind of officer he was, including his lighter side. Here's one of O'Brien's police colleagues.
Rick also had a grumpy side, although we like to joke that he wasn't very good at staying grumpy. One of his watch commanders, Scott Grimmer, remembers Rick walking in early for every shift with the largest cup of coffee McDonald's would sell and a tired scowl on his face. Scott would cheerfully welcome Rick back to work and ask, "Had enough coffee yet?" Rick would try to maintain his scowl, but would always end up smiling. "Yeah, I have."
And Liam, what about the people who were there? Did you get a chance to talk to any of them?
Well, yeah, we managed to speak to a few of the people lining 202A Street this afternoon. There were a few dozen wearing red in support of this slain officer, his family and colleagues. One person had a sign thanking police for their work, and these women had sons and a son-in-law who are Mounties. I asked them what it was like to hear that this officer, O'Brien, had been killed.
Well, stunned and distraught, and just it's not something we dwell on as families, but it hits very close to home when it happens.
So as you mentioned, Anita, Constable O'Brien was shot and killed executing a search warrant in Coquitlam. Prosecutors have charged 25-year-old Nicholas Bellemare with first-degree murder and a second count of attempted murder with a firearm. None of these allegations against him have been tested. Online court records show his next appearance is November 7th, and obviously proceedings we'll be keeping an eye on.
Liam Britton reporting live for us tonight. We will have more on this funeral and what policing experts are calling instability in the industry later in our show. The Vancouver Network of Drug Users is speaking out against incoming provincial legislation that will ban drug use in more public spaces. Some drug advocates say the ban will increase stigma, but as Yasmin Renea reports, the province says it wants to keep communities safe.
Your family people, do you love your kids?
Yes.
Of course. Do we love all kids and families?
Yes.
The Vancouver Network of Drug Users protesting concerns about prohibiting public drug use at a park near a playground where drug use is banned.
Most of us are homeless. If we don't have a place to go, we're forced to be outside, and most times, unfortunately, we're forced to go to secluded places.
The provincial government says it will soon introduce legislation to further regulate public drug use.
So decriminalization does not mean using, for example, near a playground or in the front of a store or the doorway of a store.
In September, the BC government received approval from Ottawa to ban the possession of illegal drugs within 15 meters of playgrounds, spray pools, wading pools, and skate parks for the duration of the decriminalization pilot project scheduled to last until 2026. The move came after a number of BC municipalities expressed safety concerns.
I don't want to see or hear of a young kid picking up a syringe or a pipe, or having to even see that. But also on the other flip side of it is that we have to give people places to go as well, so they can consume those substances if they don't have a home.
Drug user advocates say more overdose prevention sites are needed across BC, especially in smaller communities. The health minister says he can't speak about the specifics of the coming legislation.
What I can say generally is that what we need to do is to ensure that that we keep people safe, that we keep people alive, that we expand treatment. We're doing that. That we ensure it, but we also ensure that communities are safe.
It's unclear what exactly the legislation will be about or when it will be tabled. But what is clear is the difficulty balancing public safety and public health. Yasmin Ranea, CBC News, Vancouver.
In Victoria, a stabbing today marks the third violent attack in the same area in the past 3 weeks. A local outreach group says a lot of the city's most vulnerable people are simply in survival mode.
We're just trying to get through every day, and a lot of times that can be territory, people moving in on a place that you feel comfortable in. So sometimes acts of violence are just acts of survival.
In mid-September, this man was killed on Pandora Avenue. Then last week, just a few blocks away, a 70-year-old man assaulted. The victim in this morning's stabbing on Pandora is still in the hospital with serious injuries. No one has been arrested. Victoria police say these recent violent incidents are not unusual for the area.
Obviously, these incidents are troubling, particularly the vicious assault on a 70-year-old man, on a senior citizen, that by all accounts appears to be unprovoked. But there is crime and violence that occurs in that area.
While they don't have stats pointing to an uptick in violence, officers say they do believe a lot of crime that happens along Pandora Avenue is never reported. All right, switching gears a bit, a lot of news in Vancouver's housing market today, with both monthly real estate stats coming out and City Council making some changes to its rental policies. Breaking it all down for us is, of course, Justin McElroy live. Justin, monthly real estate numbers rarely bring good news in terms of affordability, but how was today different?
Yeah, a little bit of a switch up today compared to most months in Vancouver when we get these numbers. It's from the Greater Vancouver Real Estate Board. Last month, they showed an all-time record for the average selling price for a detached home at $2.4 million in the region. Well, today the numbers came out and it went all the way down to $2.2 million. So we can all celebrate now. No, obviously, for a lot of people, that's not going to make things more affordable. But you can see over the past year or so, there's a bunch of bumpiness, not going up, not going down overall for the trend lines. The interest rate hikes obviously having a damping effect on what we saw for those huge spikes in prices in 2020 and 2021. And you can see overall, there's not a real trend line up or down that you can discern over the last few months in Vancouver. But certainly, again, $2.2 million. That's down from where it was a month ago, but certainly not close to what anyone might consider truly affordable in this region overall.
Okay, so that's home ownership, but what about when it comes to rentals? The City of Vancouver made some changes today as well.
Yeah, this has been talked about quite a bit over the last few days. And basically, the City of Vancouver in 2017 put forward a new policy that essentially gave developers a free pass on the normal fees that they give towards the city if they agreed that 20% of units in new buildings were rentals that were much below market rental prices, so pretty cheap. But ultimately, they voted today, City Council Council did to raise those rates by about 20-25%. And people might be wondering why they would do such a thing. Well, it's because over the past 6 years, the results of this new program that the city has tried to put in place, even though 60 inquiries were received, only 16 of them were approved, only 9 of them ultimately are under construction right now, and 0 of them in the last 6 years have actually been built at this point. So the city of Vancouver hopeful that this tweak that they've made, raising the rates on what can be rented for this, as well as allowing them to increase the rates once people move out, will encourage more developers to actually build rentals. But it goes to show just how difficult it is in this environment to build truly affordable new rental projects. I'm sure they'll figure that out over the next year, though, right, Anita?
Let's hope so, Justin. Justin McElroy live tonight. Thank you.
Thanks.
BC's ombudsperson has released a report on the government's response to the wildfires and severe flooding in 2021. He calls disaster response that year outdated and inaccessible and says that evacuation supports have not kept up with today's climate realities.
What we're seeing is that displacement is much broader, way more people, and for far, far longer. Some 90% of the people who were displaced in 2021 needed support for more than 72 hours. So the system was good at a particular point in time, but it's not really fit for purpose anymore.
There's a chance to revisit that system before the next emergency, as there are no longer any wildfires of note in BC. The status of several fires in the Vanderhoof and Fort St. James areas have been downgraded. A wildfire of note is described as a highly visible fire, which poses a potential threat to public safety. The Wildfire Service says the weather conditions have helped reduce fire behavior.
We have been seeing the number of new starts, active wildfires, as well as wildfires classified as out of control, continue to decline. And that's thanks in part to the cooler, more fall-like weather, as well as those effective suppression efforts.
There are currently 334 active wildfires, 50 of which are considered out of control. Out of control fires are fires that are continuing to spread and are not responding to suppression efforts. Crews are still on scene for many of these fires, and they're asking travelers to stay vigilant in the area. Residents who live in the rural parts of the Capital Regional District on Vancouver Island can now consult a new series of maps which chart wildfire risk linked to vegetation. The maps are a project created by the CRD and Islands Trust, aiming to prevent fires in Juan de Fuca, the Salt Spring Island and Southern Gulf Islands areas with fire-prone vegetation.
You know, looking at the maps, it's quite astounding how much of our electoral areas are at risk of, potentially at risk of wildfire.
Brent adds that landowners on the island should take action if they find they are in a high exposure area by following fire smart recommendations and having an emergency plan ready. All right, Darius Madavi joins us now with a first look at the weather. I guess good news that this fire danger has gone down.
Yes, absolutely. It's nice to see that we have no more fires of note in the province. It looks like the cooler weather, as we heard, and some precipitation that we've been seeing across the province has brought our fire danger down. I know that we've been talking about over the next few days, we're going to see temperatures start to come up, but fortunately, it won't have too much of an impact on the fire danger because we have had some precipitation. The cooler conditions, even if they do come up, they're not going to be anything like the summer heat that we've had. So nothing but good news in terms of the fire situation. Over the next couple days, we see temperatures keep coming up. So tomorrow, we get a little bit warmer, especially on the coast. By Friday, we've come up across most of the province. So we're talking temperatures that are 7 or 8 degrees above seasonal, especially up north, closer to 4 or 5 degrees above seasonal in the south. You can see inland parts of Vancouver getting very warm by Friday and Saturday. Temperatures probably peak on Saturday for most of the province and come down a little bit on Sunday before really coming down on Monday. That's what it's looking like right now, potentially with some rain on Monday as well, but probably too early to say that for sure just yet. But here in Vancouver, it looks like we've got some cloud lingering into tomorrow. But by tomorrow late morning, probably 10, 11 a.m., that cloud starts to clear out. And I know one person who will be very happy to hear that it's a sunny day, because Anita, this is your last day. This is your last show. So I've got a sunny day for you tomorrow.
Wonderful.
Take advantage.
My first day of maternity leave tomorrow. The baby's not coming tomorrow, but Yes, I will be off. Today is my last show before a year-long maternity leave. So thanks for the weather, Darius. I appreciate that.
Oh, of course. Anytime. Just give me a call, even when you're off.
I will. Careful what you wish for.
Oh, great.
Thanks. Well, for the third year in a row, the Stanley Park ghost train has been canceled. Vancouver Park Board says the train is still experiencing mechanical issues. They say the vintage train requires specialized parts that are hard to get. All parts have now been obtained, and they hope to have the train repaired by November. The Halloween train was first canceled in 2020 because of COVID-19. In 2021, it was shut down over coyote concerns. 2022, the train was confirmed to hit the tracks, but was canceled again a few weeks later. And the Ronald McDonald House is a home away from home for families facing medical crisis. Today, the charity is celebrating its 40th anniversary here in BC. And for families, it's not just a place to stay together under one roof, it's also a place to heal.
2, 3, 4. We did it!
Today is the 40th anniversary of Ronald McDonald House in British Columbia, and the original house served 13 families at a time, and in 2014 we opened the current house, which serves 73 families at a time.
Gabby was diagnosed when she was 4 with a brainstem tumor. Yeah, it's grown recently again, so we're back to try and nip it in the bud again. We're pretty familiar with the place. This round of treatment, we have been here for a month and a half.
Ronald McDonald House is a home where families stay when their child is seriously ill, and the families have to travel from somewhere in British Columbia or Yukon and stay for treatment at BC Children's Hospital.
It just feels like home. You meet other families that are going through things. Just makes you feel like you're not alone.
It's nice not to have to go back down and then come back up for every appointment that I have.
This place has been a godsend for us for the entire time that we've been here. It's just made it easy to come and just focus on the journey with Gabby.
It's been pretty good. I've made a lot of friends, which I like about that.
We're planning a new house to ensure that we can serve more families. The new facility is likely to cost about $100 million, and we're going to raise those funds and get the house built as soon as we can.
Bringing families together for the past 40 years, and hopefully we can keep bringing families together.
Like, keep it going.
Keep it going.
The current state of policing safety and what experts call growing instability after the death of a BC police officer. Our live interview is next. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream today. In Toronto, the paramedics union is sounding the alarm again on a shortage of ambulances. On Monday, they declared a code red, which means all ambulances were tied up for a period of time. And as Ali Chiasson explains, paramedics from other municipalities had to be called in to help.
The paramedics union declares a code red when there's a shortage of ambulances. For several hours on Monday, they were all tied up.
It's bad out there on a daily basis. The other day wasn't really an anomaly, except for the fact that the service has never got to the point where they've had to basically beg their neighbors for help.
It's the first time paramedic union leader Mike Merriman has seen it in 32 years. He says about 50 911 calls were waiting in a queue that Toronto paramedics would not be able to get to.
The one that comes to mind when I heard about from one of our crews was a woman in her 80s who fell and looks like fractured her arm, and she was waiting on the ground for hours before a unit could get there, that's not acceptable. It's obviously that, to me, it's the service has reached a tipping point.
Although it happened on a busy night, Merriman says Toronto should have had enough medics to respond. Instead, they had to ask York Region to send ambulances, something the city says is routine. In order to help ensure the most effective response to high-priority patients, there are no borders for ambulances. The closest ambulance is always chosen to respond to high-priority calls, regardless of location. They say one of the more pressing issues is at the hospital level, concerning ambulance drop-offs where paramedics are tied up in patient care at emergency rooms.
I'm not denying that's not the case. That does happen, but it wasn't the case the other day. The hospitals were doing much better.
Merriman says staff retention is the most pressing issue facing EMS. Increased pressures of the cost of living and other jurisdictions offering higher salaries.
Toronto services 20% of the calls for the entire province, but has 10% of the staff. So that should give you some indication of the workload that Toronto paramedics have.
Pressure that will only increase as demand increases heading into flu and COVID season. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Hundreds of Mounties and first responders took part in a regimental procession and funeral for Constable Rick OBrien today. He was killed last month while executing a drug-related search warrant in Coquitlam. Take a look at some of the highlights from the ceremonies in honor of the fallen officer.
We are here today to honor our fallen hero, Constable Rick OBrien of Ridge Meadows Detachment, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and to recognize the ultimate sacrifice he has made in the line of duty to keep our communities safe.
The world has changed with this loss. We can't say enough, but we want to say, well done, Rick. We love you.
I wish I could have done more to help. We're also very proud of you. We love you, and you will be missed.
I feel honored to have known Rick, and I can honestly say there will never be another person quite like my friend.
Rick loved to give hugs, a gift that he inherited from my mom. Rick's oldest daughter, Cindy, would like for all of you to know that every time she had a school play, Rick was there. He would watch with pride, and then he'd be the first to present her with a bouquet of roses and a big hug.
How do I ever imagine life without you? When our whole life was planned around being together and watching the kids grow up, we really did fit a lifetime of adventures into the last 11 and a half years. My very favorite thing about you is loving you and the way you love me back. The love we shared will be the one thing I will cherish the most. A once-in-a-lifetime kind of love, a storybook love, a love that we both never knew existed.
To widen our lens on this, Doug King joins me live now. He's a professor of criminal justice at Mount Royal University. You know, it's been less than a year since Constable Shaylin Yang was stabbed to death in Burnaby, and 2023 is on track to be the deadliest year for Canadian police in decades. What do these deaths say about the current state of policing and officer safety?
You know, I think it's a pretty important barometer that policing is becoming more and more dangerous as a profession. It's always been dangerous in terms of responding to certain calls for service, violence, perpetrators with weapons. But the world has changed in the last 3 or 4 years, and policing is becoming more and more dangerous. And unfortunately, we're starting to see the consequences of this with not just in the Lower Mainland, but in Edmonton, there were 2 police officers shot in a hallway, and you go across Canada. It's happening across Canada. It's happening in the United States. And it's unfortunately a trend that there really doesn't seem to be an end to it in the immediate future.
How concerning is this in terms of recruitment and trying to bring more people into the policing service?
You know, it's a really good question. The Edmonton Police Service and the Calgary Police Service reported that there was an uptick in applications after the two officers in Edmonton were shot and killed. So I think in some instances it actually empowers individuals to say, that's the job I want to do. That's the kind of protection I want to provide society. But I teach a lot of students, and most of them do not want to become police officers anymore. They're really aware of the dangers. They're saying, I don't want to put myself, my family, my community into that risk. And so it cuts both ways, but it does have a negative impact in the long run.
Yeah, an uptick is quite surprising, just given what has happened in this country this year. Can you talk about de-escalation training? How does that play a role in saving the lives of both officers and those involved in a crime?
You know, I think you have to look at it from kind of a really kind of objective, detached point of view. The training does work. It makes officers safer. They now have some tools outside of use of force to intervene in really challenging situations. But the reality of police training and the reality of policing is no matter how good your training is, and no matter how much precaution you take in responding to a call, it is still extraordinarily dangerous. And I think, you know, if you're going to be serving a search warrant, you will take every protection in the world, but then stuff happens. Here in Alberta, when the two officers were shot in Edmonton, they were responding to a call for service, and they were shot through a door. You can't really expect that, and your training is not going to dampen that risk to much degree. So you have to accept that it's risky, but the de-escalation training and how you respond to a call for service that involves potential risk involving more than one responder and things like that keeps officers safer, but it doesn't keep them completely safe.
Doug King is a professor of criminal justice at Mount Royal University and joins us live tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
History in the making. Manitoba elects Canada's first First Nations provincial premier. The challenges that await him next. The Abbotsford Air Show. Okay, I'm a little bit obsessed. Growing up down the street, I have so many memories of the snowbirds flying in perfect formation, the ridiculously loud CF-18 going right overhead, and of course, the oh-so-brave Skyhawks, Canada's parachute demonstration team, thrilling audiences by jumping out of planes, and today, I am going to do just that. So what did I get myself into today?
Today, we're going to be boarding this aircraft over here, climbing up all the way to about 12,500 feet. I have a harness on myself, a huge parachute. We'll be strapped in together, and then this is going to open. You're going to be jumping.
Let's do this.
How was that?
That was the most incredible thing I've ever done in my life.
Are you going to do it again?
I might have to.
All right.
Thank you, that was amazing.
No problem, our pleasure.
I turned around with Mount Baker behind, some nice shot of Mount Baker.
Mount Baker was beautiful. That was so amazing. Thank you.
How you liked it?
Manitoba's new Democratic Party has a majority government after the province's election yesterday, and party leader Wab Kinew's win made history. Cameron McIntosh has this look at his rise to the top and the challenges that lie ahead.
Premier-designate Wab Kinew is walking into Manitoba's top job, facing extraordinary expectations as Canada's first First Nations Premier of a province.
I didn't run on being the first First Nations Premier. I put my name on the ballot to try and be the best Premier.
He ran on healthcare, says he believes Manitobans didn't see race as an issue.
And Manitobans voted to come together for a positive vision of the future. And if along the way they elected an Indigenous Premier, then I would say that that's another testament to our country moving forward.
In the campaign, the Manitoba Progressive Conservative Party ran ads invoking racial stereotypes. They also tried to create a wedge issue campaigning against searching a landfill for the remains of 2 murdered Indigenous women. Kinew supports the search. On the day after, Indigenous demonstrators wasted no time insisting he follow through. Manitoba's Grand Chief making her expectations clear.
Today, we have the first Anishinaabe Premier of Manitoba.
Kinew started building a profile in the late 2000s as a rapper, TV host, and later journalist. Community activism led him to politics. In 2017, he became Manitoba NDP leader. His ascension to premier comes along with a troubled past, including struggles with addiction and criminal charges for impaired driving and assault.
My past is the reason that I'm running.
He's built a self-narrative of second chances.
It's a great day today, and I think it provides so much hope for the future for our province and for our young Indigenous people.
What it shows is that Manitoba has a lot to teach the rest of the country, I think, on the issue of reconciliation.
This Indigenous Studies professor says Kinew has found a unique position among Indigenous leaders.
He's been also very interested and engaged in working with Canadians and being a very proud Canadian. You don't see that a lot with First Nations people across the country.
Take the landfill. With Kinew's election, the federal government says it will help fund studies into the best approach. As Kinew insists, he'll lead for all Manitobans.
And this election was about rejecting division.
Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Prime Minister Trudeau is considering making records of more alleged former Nazi soldiers and officials who immigrated to Canada public for the first time. As Ashley Burke reports, this comes days after Rideau Hall apologized for honoring another soldier who served in the same unit as Yaroslav Hunka with the Order of Canada.
The fallout from a political blunder continues.
There are top public servants who are looking very carefully into the issue.
The Prime Minister looking into declassifying decades-old government records on former Nazis living in Canada after this. Parliament giving a standing ovation to a 98-year-old veteran in front of Ukraine's president. It later came to light Yaroslav Hunka served on the side of Nazi Germany. Now the focus has shifted to Rideau Hall and an honor bestowed on another Ukrainian Canadian, Peter Savrin, who a historian says served in the same unit as Hunka.
As a young man, he volunteered to join the
14th Waffen-SS Division Halicina or Galicia in 1944 as an 18-year-old man. And as such, he took an oath of allegiance personally to Adolf Hitler.
Savrin went on to serve as the Chancellor of the University of Alberta.
Distinguished University Chancellor from Alberta.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, Madam Chairman.
He was also a past president of the Ukrainian World Congress and an executive with the Progressive Conservative Party of Alberta. In 1987, he was awarded the Order of Canada.
So I'll say a few words to everybody.
As the Governor General attended events, Rideau Hall acknowledged its deep regret and said, "We express our sincere apology to Canadians for any distress or pain his appointment may have caused."
And I'm glad it's happening now. But I wrote about this a dozen of years ago. And when I did, there was very little interest, zero interest in this, in fact.
Some among the opposition say the government needs to go further and release classified records about who came to Canada post-war after fighting in Nazi units.
It's time that we looked at that past very seriously. And it's unfortunate that it took the government allowing an incident like a Nazi to be recognized in the House to actually get here.
Some minor hockey parents may be surprised to hear about a new dressing room policy now in place from Hockey Canada. It affects all minor hockey players from the youngest level right up to under 18.
It's very much about making sure that everybody feels comfortable in every dressing room. So there's some requirements called minimum attire, which is primarily that everybody should be arriving and covered in at least their base layer and leaving in at least same sort of level as well, so that everybody feels comfortable in the dressing room.
Players are being encouraged to wear their base layer of clothing to the arena instead of changing in the locker room. For those who don't, they're required to put it on inside a private washroom stall prior to putting on their gear. Hockey Canada says police are trying to promote, policy is trying to promote inclusion, and the decision is based on respecting the privacy of players' gender identity, religious beliefs, and body image concerns. Infestation in Paris. Media reports about bedbugs on transit and public spaces spur concern about potential impact on tourism and the upcoming 2024 Olympics in Paris. We'll tell you how France is reacting after the break.
As a parent, there's nothing I can do about it.
Kathleen Eisler says she feels frustrated. Her kids have gone to Regina's Harbour Landing School since it opened in 2017. Enrollment was high back then and still is. She says over the years she's seen students rezoned to other schools. The French immersion program also moved to make more space.
We are beyond the design capacity. We are now into just, are we functioning and safe?
It's a similar scenario across Regina and Saskatoon's public and Catholic school divisions. Enrollment numbers won't be finalized until the end of the month, but all four divisions say they're already seeing tremendous growth. Most say they aim to keep class sizes around 25 students. Shane Skirvin, Saskatoon Public's Director of Education, says space is limited. And in his division, that means some students have been using staff and multi-purpose rooms.
It's not ideal, but just given the growth that we have in those schools, we need to do that.
Skirvin says teacher-to-student ratios are always on his division's radar. Since many schools are seeing more newcomer students, that means more demand for English as an additional language teachers, positions that have been reduced in recent years.
We do everything we can to meet those needs, but we are absolutely seeing the complexity of student is getting to the point where it's getting more challenging.
Samantha Beacott, the president of the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation, says these are chronic concerns, and she says more money from the province is needed to fix them.
Everyone, parents and teachers, are trying to work magic to try and support all of these kids, but we can't do it alone. We need government to be working with us to ensure every kid is supported across the province.
The Saskatchewan government says the last provincial budget included $23 million for more portable classrooms and educational assistance. And there was a $40 million funding boost in June to address high enrollment and staffing shortages.
It's rightly identified as a challenge, and it's rightly a challenge that this government is continuing to work towards addressing.
Premier Scott Moe says the growth is unprecedented, and he agrees more schools are needed. Jesse Anton, CBC News, Regina.
Hey, I'm Johanna Wagstaff.
And hi there, I'm Rohith Joseph.
And we're asking for 10 minutes of your day to go through the 10 things that the UN recommends we can all do when it comes to climate change.
Please don't leave.
No.
And also, the things aren't new.
We are just wired to not do them.
We promise you to help you figure out your brains, and you and your people can make better choices to combat climate change.
10 Minutes to Save the Planet is available now on CBC Listen and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Darius Madavi is with us once again for a look at the forecast. Starting in Ontario, very hot, unusual.
Yes, definitely. So here's where we usually are this time of year. We talked about this briefly yesterday, but close to 20 in the south, much closer to 10 degrees further north. Where we actually are is much more orange. So you can, compared to yesterday, you might notice that the heat has sort of moved further east. The high pressure system has moved over. The jet stream is now making its way to places like Thunder Bay in northwestern Ontario. So we've cooled down there. But again, like Ottawa, 15 degrees hotter than it usually is this time of year. Toronto also sort of 10 degrees warmer than usual. So very out of the ordinary. As the high pressure system continues to move further east, we will see temperatures continue to come down, but there are some hot days in store for places further east as well. Meanwhile, we also have our own sort of heating trend happening over here. We have maybe 24 more hours of rain happening for the coast and into central BC. And then further north, just a bit of rain. For Dease Lake, probably going to see some snow as well, which we can't see on this map, but quite a bit of snow for these first 24 hours here. And then into the next 48 hours, or into the 48-hour mark, we start to see the snow calm down as we see some heating happening across the province. So we looked at that heat map for the province earlier. For the south coast, we're looking at pretty similar things. We've already seen the temperatures start to come up, but tomorrow we see a slightly bigger spike. And then as we head into Friday, temperatures come up even more. And this is probably going to be our last real, I don't want to say heat wave, but quite out of the ordinary, even for the south coast. We're looking at 7 or 8 degrees above usual. And then for Saturday as well, we see those temperatures come up. On Sunday, we start to see some rain make its way potentially to places like Tofino on the west coast, maybe the North Island as well. And then it's not till probably Monday, maybe Sunday, overnight into Monday, we see that rain make its way onto into the lower mainland, to the South Island. So quite a while yet of this warm weather before we potentially even see some rain. Tonight, that rain, once again, just making its way to the coast and potentially into central BC. You can see some snow happening up in Dease Lake. And again, we're in the negatives up by Dease Lake and Fort St. John, pretty much all of northern BC. So we're definitely cooling, but we do have those temperatures coming back up over the next few days. And you can see that here in Vancouver. We've got some sunny days ahead before the rain returns. And yeah, we got some nice weather heading into the weekend. Does not match our feelings as Anita leaves because we're all very sad.
So Monday really matches your feelings, right?
Monday
All the
matches.
tears.
This is where it really sinks in that you're gone, and I'm crying to match the rain.
I love that. I'm not going to say, no to a little bit of sadness.
I know. I might sound sarcastic, but I'm not. I'm going to be weeping.
Thanks, Darius.
We'll miss you.
Thank you. Well, France is trying to tamp down growing fear that there is a widespread bedbug infestation just months before the world descends on Paris for the 2024 Olympic Games. Sasha Petrusik with where the pests have been found and how the government is reacting.
In a Paris flat under fabric and upholstery. Il y a de la surprise. Quelle surprise!
Là, on en voit pas mal des œufs.
Pest control experts point to a trail of white bug eggs and plenty of brown bed bugs, little insects causing a big uproar across France. That's really traumatizing, says this train passenger. Social media shows bugs on the country's high-speed rail, pictures of red rashes blamed on infestations at cinemas. Bedbugs don't spread disease, but they do cause itches and irritation. One high school in Marseille has been ordered closed to be disinfected. The bugs have even come to Parliament, brought in a vial by an MP demanding solutions to France's wave of panic. The government is holding emergency meetings as it tries to calm fears before next year's Paris Olympics. So far, inspections and even sniffer dogs at railway stations have found 0 confirmed cases.
Nos transports, dans nos transports publics.
No upsurge of bed bugs in our transport systems, says Minister Clément Beaune. That hasn't stopped Parisians from flocking to stores selling insecticide.
En fait, elles vivent dans le bois et
Though store owner Sacha Krief says there have always been bed bugs in his city with seasonal surges. The only difference now?
Donc du coup, c'est un peu la panique.
Social media is spreading the panic, he says. Experts tend to agree, saying this is likely just the end of a lull in bed bugs experienced during the pandemic. But for Parisians, it feels like a whole new contagion. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, the government in the U.S. remains in turmoil. The ousted of the Speaker of the House of Representatives has severely restricted what lawmakers can do. As Paul Hunter explains, 8 hard-right Republicans joined with Democrats in an unprecedented vote to remove Kevin McCarthy from the office yesterday.
On Capitol Hill, chaos. There is anger and frustration over what happened yesterday, aimed at the handful of Republicans who brought this on, described by the majority as selfish, disgusting heretics. Here's a sampling of Republicans highlighting the party's divide.
The House was going to be in chaos if this did not happen. I am looking for a speaker who will tell the truth to the American people, who will be honest and trustworthy with Congress, with both parties.
Those 8 people are anarchists, and they're Chaos Caucus members. Nobody can meet their demands, and the conference is going to have to figure out how we deal with, 8 people that are here that candidly aren't interested in governing.
Meanwhile, yet another U.S. government shutdown now looms again. While the House is in paralysis until a new speaker is determined, roughly only 40 days or so until that temporary spending deal struck between McCarthy and Democrats expires, and a new one is needed, the same kind of deal that led to McCarthy's demise because of the inherent compromises needed for it with Democrats, something those 8 hardliners vehemently oppose. They want steep cuts in spending, for example, including on U.S. aid to Ukraine. All of it leaving the party wondering where all of this is going. In the eyes of the 8 who voted McCarthy out, the steps they took worked. And whoever's in the speaker's job when all of this settles will face the same 8 in the same way. Here's Kevin McCarthy on aspects of that, and as well, Hakeem Jeffries, the top Democrat in the House. But McCarthy first.
I don't regret standing up for choosing governance over grievance. It is my responsibility. It is my job. I do not regret negotiating. Our government is designed to find compromise.
We encourage our Republican colleagues who claim to be more traditional to break from the extremists in the chaos, in the dysfunction, in the extremism.
Bottom line on all the infighting among Republicans, it would seem it has barely even begun. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
It's an effort to bring young birders together. We meet the woman who is inspired to get youth with a passion for nature together. That's next.
Hey friends, it's Janae and Gary here at Grouse Mountain.
Yep, and we are looking for things that go!
And guess what, Gary?
What?
We're in the perfect place because right behind us is the Super Sky Ride.
That sounds awesome. What is a Super Sky Ride?
Well, the Super Sky Ride is a tram, and it travels across strong cables and pulls people all the way up to the top of the mountain.
Oh, that sounds amazing, Janae. I have one question.
What's that?
Does it also take unicorns?
You bet it does.
Well, then what are we waiting for? To the Super Sky Ride! Let's go! Janae, this is amazing.
Gary, we haven't even started yet.
Oh, yeah, I was wondering why the view was a bit concrete-y.
Yeah, just wait. It's gonna be amazing.
Is it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can feel it. We're moving. We're moving.
Yeah, we are.
Janae, Janae.
Yes.
Well, what are those up there?
Those are the cables.
What are they?
Yeah, the cables are pulling the Sky Ride all the way up the mountain. They're really strong. They have to hold all of us.
That's good. Go cables. Go cable. Pull, pull, pull. Oh, wow. Janae, are we there yet?
No, not yet, Gary. But look, we can see even more now. There's mountains.
There's some kind of river over there. Look at that.
Wow.
Janae, this tram is really moving.
It sure is.
It's a moving and a grooving.
Wow.
Wow, look at that.
We're so high up.
Really is high.
Cool, it's scary.
It is. Can you hold my hoof? Yeah, thank you. This is really awesome, isn't it? Can I go look out the window? Can you lift me up a little? I want to see a little higher. Okay, ready? Okay, wait.
You see?
Whoa! That's really I can see boats out there.
Hi, boats!
Hi, boats! Look at us go. We are so high. I love it. Oh, I think we're getting close, Janae. I think we're getting close.
I can almost see the top.
I think we're coming to the station.
We're here.
We're at the top of Grouse Mountain. Let's go. La, 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 Grouse Mountain. Here we go. Wow. Look at that, Janae. We can see all of Vancouver from here.
Yeah, check it out, Gary. I can see Stanley Park and, Lionsgate Bridge.
Hello, Stanley Park. Hello, Lionsgate Bridge. Janae, we are going to stay up here until we've said hi to everything.
Oh, boy. We're going to be here a while.
Oh, there's a tree. Hello, tree. Oh, and there's a stoplight. Hello, stoplight.
What?
Hey, is there a dog over there?
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. On October 20th, join CBC Vancouver's Leanne Young at the Big Sisters Soiree Gala, an evening for the community to come together celebrating mentorship and resilience of youth. And the Chutzpah Festival returns November 2nd to 23rd with an exciting lineup of performances including dance, music, theater, and more. Festival tickets at chutzpahfestival.com.
They're called Young Birders. The group of kids who are passionate about birds have banded together to go out birding. In this new Creator Network film, we meet the people behind the project.
I think the osprey is coming in.
Oh, the osprey,
yeah. The gulls are running.
Fish, it looks like.
Oh, look! Yeah. Oh, going. Nice.
Here it comes. It's got a fish, guys. Oh! I started at 5 years old.
Whoa.
My dad would get me into birding. He bought me my first field guide, which was a golden guide, and he would take me to places like Rifle Bird Sanctuary. We'd go there, look at the birds. He'd teach me how to feed the chickadees, and every bird we saw, we would go home at the evening and tick it off in the book. He sparked the love of birds and getting out in nature, and since I'm so hardcore and passionate about it, I wanted to share that with the youth.
There's always tons of swallows and cliff swallows that cling to the nests.
Yeah, so I started the Young Birder program in 2014, and I saw all these young birders every time I went out birding, and they'd be birding alone. And so I started to ask them, like, hey, would you like to come out with me and go birding? And we could, form a group. Would you be interested in that? And they were all so keen. So I got the group together, and we started to take them out on field trips across the province. My goal was to get them out to see birds that they wouldn't see in their own backyard.
That's it, isn't it? Yeah, it is.
Oh, in the tree there, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
that's
that's a catbird. That's the baby, that one.
That's the baby?
That one's the baby down there.
Oh, one in the tree.
Yeah, you can see it has a yellow gape. It is. It's fly catching and trying to get bugs and berries.
Yeah.
When the parent left, we were watching the parent fly across and back and forth. Well, I lost my mother before my father. She died from breast cancer. And then, I lost my father in February 2023. He actually died on my mom's, would have been her birthday, so that was very hard. I think nobody really knows what it's like until they go through it, because I certainly didn't know what it would be like till I lost my mother. And it was very, like a pain I've never had before. And then losing my father on top of that was just really hard.
That looks like a young yellowthroat, but it's, is it really that great?
Well, I didn't consider it. Yeah, you're right. I didn't consider it being juvenile.
Yeah,
That's
I think it's a
interesting.
young one.
I've had a lot of invalidating comments with people trying to be helpful, but they've actually been hurtful. You know, they've said things like, oh, you were lucky you had so long of your parents. Some people lose their parents when they're children and when it's much harder, or, oh, they lived a long life, or it was their time. But the fact is, it's very painful, and I am sad. So you just want people to listen and hear you without making any judgment calls or trying to make it better, because you really can't fix grief. So we're looking at osprey right now. We've got one adult on the right-hand side and 3 young chicks on the left-hand side. The young ones have much more scaly, mantled feathers than the adults, which are solid brown. But they still need to learn the skills to hunt on their own. Right now, the adults are still bringing them fish. Yeah. That's why you can hear their begging calls.
She knows like everything there is to know. It's crazy. She's very eager to teach you, so it's really awesome to have a mentor like her.
For the past few years I've been in this group, I've definitely learned a lot more and have had a very good time being in a very kind of casual, comfortable group. Just being out in nature, seeing a lot of green, I think it does something to like kind of reset your brain. Yeah, it's relaxing in its own way.
Well, yeah, the young birders, the alumni, their parents, they've all been wonderful. They've probably been the best of anybody. They've just been so loving and treated me like family, you know. If it comes from parents just calling me, giving me, you know, gift certificates, because when you lose both your parents, you know, you don't want to do much. You don't want to cook. You don't want to. So they thought of me like that. And I was so touched by how the young birders, both past and present, and their families just made me feel like so important. And just, it really touched me, because I lost both my parents, and they just were so grateful for what I did for their children, that they treated me like so special. And I'll never forget it for the rest of my life, you know? It was just like, it meant the world to me, you know? After I left the hospital when my dad passed away, the first thing I heard was a song sparrow. This song sparrow sang, and in this moment of great pain, that song just lifted me up. And a song sparrow is a very common bird, not a very beautiful bird. It's this brown, drab bird. But that song just made me just lift up just a little bit and be like, hey, life is still beautiful, despite it being so tragic and so painful. It just was a little bright light on such a dark day for me. Like, I'll never forget my father. I'll never forget my mother. I think of them every day. But these birds helped me to keep going forward, to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Just like the youth helped me too with that. Like, they give me some sense of purpose and joy to keep going.
Nice way to end my last show. Birds are my favorite animal.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we checked.
Yes, so thank you for that. Today's it. That's it. I'm going on mat leave.
Again. Another new adventure.
Second
This is going to
time.
be awesome.
I went on a short one last time. I'm going to try and take a year this time.
Try is the operative word. We are going to miss you a lot. It's going to be great that you're jumping into this new adventure with the whole family and new addition. But yeah, you will be missed around here for sure.
Thank you, Dan.
You're very welcome.
Thanks. Yeah.
Just try and stay away. I don't think you'll be able to.
I'll stay away from you, Darius.
Yeah.
Sure.
At least I had a chance to learn from the best before you left. Now I have Dan. So.
Yes.
Yeah. We're scraping the barrel, folks. What can you say?
Thank you very much to both of you, and good luck with the rest of the year and the show. And thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. I will miss all of you over the next year, and I look forward to talking with you again soon. Until then, you'll be in good hands with Mr. Dan Burritt. Thanks again.